Yeah, good morning. Time to start the next session after the refreshing one of the last one. We have with us Ms. Geeta Jani, eminent faculty, who is going to take us through the permanent establishment issues and challenges. We do not have the practice of introducing the speaker because we have already given the detailed introduction to save time so that we can have more of the speaker's knowledge to be shared with us. Before Ms. Jani can start the session, I request the President to present a memento as mark of our respect to the speaker. I request Ms. Jani to start.
Respected seniors, friends, we really had a wonderful start. Hats off to the madam for absolute impartial presentation that she had. I don't watch much of the cricket, but from whatever that I understand, opening batsmen have not been doing that well. And that's where perhaps Pareshwar has already cautioned all of us. So let me try and not be opening batsman, but start with something different. The child is happy, and we had some good suggestions here. Why not apply this technology everywhere, including bringing the speakers from home? And there were suggestions about dehydrating speakers and then blowing them up. All this to ensure that I am, if at all, the third batsman and not an opening batsman. With this, friends, we have an interesting subject, and must I say, I too had to learn for this. Sorry, after seeing the technology, I feel technologically challenged. May I have help, please? Okay. Now, the subject is, of course, interesting, and generally I've been speaking more on fee fees for technical services and royalties. So I think Paresh Bhai rightly thought, let me also have opportunity of learning permanent establishment. Here I am aware, addressing a gathering, allied gathering, which is aware of the nuances and we have to take it to the next level. So if we really look at the contents, we will revisit the basics. Then maybe, depending on time permitting, we will look at the rulings of relevance. We'll try and apply those with the help of case studies that we have shortlisted. Then, this was the time when I wanted to show primary or drawn, which we changed. So we'll talk about digital and digitized economy. Today's newspaper itself carrying the front news that eBay is investing heavily into Snapdeal and the e-retailer is gaining significance. There, of course, in India we have seen certain rulings and there are international rulings that we have. So let's with this index begin our karma. We know permanent establishment is a minimum threshold which is required in the treaty for the foreign enterprise to pay tax in the source country. Minus PE, you don't have right of taxation. The source country doesn't have right of taxation unless special rules relating to fees for technical services or royalties may be applicable. So this brings in the importance of permanent establishment because but for permanent establishment, there is a music to the ear of the foreign enterprise that he has a situation of no PE, no taxation. OECD model, if we look at it, it talks about a fixed place of business to which the business of the foreign enterprise is wholly or partially carried on. The concept of fixed place, fixed and the place brings in the tangible element and therefore a greater challenge when we are talking about or looking at this concept in the context of digital economy or in the context of economy which is more of an intangible nature. You do have special rule about construction PE and as Madam rightly said, if nothing of this works, try to look at the unassociated PE in the form of agency rule. We of course also know that there are exclusions applicable in respect of preparatory and auxiliary activities and we do have a clarification that relationship between the foreign enterprise and local enterprise is not of relevance and that a subsidiary can become PE only under the same circumstances under which a non-associated or a third party could have become a PE. So this is more for refreshing our fundas and in any permanent establishment presentation one would feel like beginning with the Indian case law which is fairly old and you still feel respect about the brief and the succinct nature with which this paragraph is bringing about the concept of PE. So you have PE which postulates the existence of a substantial element. Substantial element by its nature will rule out trivial or non-significant element. So preparatory and auxiliary activity may be regarded as a trivial or a not so significant element, so that gets excluded. So it's an existence for a substantial element. It has to be of an enduring or permanent nature. Enduring, you therefore exclude what is fleeting, transitory and not so long drawn. Permanent brings in the aspect of fixed nature, the physical place, as also the fact that it has to be of a reasonable duration. So there is a substantial element of an enduring or permanent nature of a foreign enterprise in another country which can be attributed to a fixed place of business. So again you need a fixed place of business, a tangible presence which is of utmost importance. And it should be such that it amounts to virtual projection of the foreign enterprise in the other country. So this definition, if we really look at it, gets fairly summarized in three important aspects which are stated in OECD model. That these three conditions satisfied on a cumulative basis alone will trigger presence of PE in India. So you need a place of business. That place needs to be fixed or permanent, and the foreign enterprise should be carrying on business through such place of business. So a place of business could be premises, facility or equipment. And we know that in the context of equipment, we are also told that it could be a fully automated equipment. So in the commentary, you have an example of a vending machine. And in today's context, the example can get substituted by equipments like server or online gaming machine. So a place of business indicates that you need to be at a particular place. So that brings in fixed or a permanent aspect of it. It has to be at a distinct place. And when we talk about a reasonably long duration presence, a rule of thumb has been that it has to be for about 6 months. Not that it comes out from anywhere, but a general experience has been that you need a presence of minimum 6 months before a presence can be regarded as a long drawn presence or a reasonable presence. You need to be at a particular geographical location, and that place has to be at the disposal of a foreign enterprise. And we are going to discuss in detail as to what is meant by the place being at the disposal of a foreign enterprise. Then the foreign enterprise needs to carry on business through that fixed place of business. Now before we move over to understanding one or two aspects of it and then go over to the case studies where we will try and apply these principles, we also need to be aware of the fact that on OECD commentary, India has put many of the observations. Questions do often arise as to what is the significant sanctity of these observations are. So say for example, as all of us are aware, that in Article 5.2, the OECD model tells us that PE specifically includes certain places like place of management, office, warehouse, etc. The Indian position is that these enumerated items will always constitute permanent establishment, and the condition which is there in Article 5.1 that should be a place through which business is wholly or partially carried on need not be fulfilled. So Indian position or Indian observation is that 5.2 is a free-falling PE trigger, whereas the understanding is that 5.2 in itself can never be a free-falling PE trigger unless 5.1 conditions of carrying on of business is satisfied. We have Delhi High Court acknowledging that yes, this is the correct understanding. But the Indian position is that no, it is not to be treated as such, and that 5.2 will trigger PE in all circumstances. Now when Indian judiciary takes a different view, the question is, can the assessing officer indicate this as the Indian position, Indian observation, and try and apply to the treaties? So therefore that raises a question about the validity of Indian observations. So legal view is that these observations are on commentaries. Commentaries only have persuasive effect while interpreting the treaties. The treaty text is important for determining what is the scope of taxation rights which are attributed to India. So if commentaries are not binding on treaty interpretation, certainly the observations which are put by any non-OECD member country will not be binding. Secondly, if India feels so strong about the observations, nothing prevents India from negotiating it with the counterparty and tell the counterparty that look, this is what our viewpoint is. let's put it in protocol. So a legal position that emerges is that these observations have no further role to play except telling the other country that look, somebody in India may look at this particular viewpoint or this particular issue as per this viewpoint and not as per what OECD understands. And we'll keep referring to some of those positions when we look at the case studies and when we look at the other aspects. Now, disposition is something very interesting and something what we feel, why can there be a challenge when it comes to a disposition test? It's a simple thing that a place needs to be at the disposal of the foreign enterprise, and it is only when the place is at the disposal of the foreign enterprise that he can be regarded as carrying on business through that place. But mind you, this is one condition which poses maximum of interpretational issues. So what we broadly understand is that a disposition test means the foreign enterprise has certain right or dominion or control over the place. The place need not be owned, it could be rented. In fact, commentaries go to the extent of saying that even illegal occupation is good enough. And we also have a clarification that a service provider's office is not at the disposal of the service recipient. So a foreign enterprise who gets the goods manufactured either on a contract manufacturing basis or on a toll manufacturing basis, or a foreign enterprise which avails BPO services of call center or accounts administration, that service provider's premises are not at the disposal of the service recipient. But underline the word generally. That means it is not the gospel truth, and as you know, it is the facts which win the case and the facts which lose the case, and therefore the factual analysis, functional analysis will become relevant. Now you take example of a person, a pedestrian, who is selling his goods at a particular pedestrian street. Now he is given a license by BMC that whenever after 6 o'clock this street is secluded from traffic and all the vendors come and do the business here, you are permitted to come and do your vending business. Is the place at his disposal? Yes. Is it fixed? Yes, it is fixed in the sense that within the vicinity he is able to transact his business. Can anyone preclude him from entering that place? Answer is no, because he has been permitted by BMC to do that. Does he have ability to do his dream business the way he wishes? Answer is yes. He can sell color in Holi, crackers in Diwali, and Dandiya in Navratri. So he fulfills the test. Is there a place open to sky? Can that be a place? Yes, it is a place. Do you need structure? Answer is no. So it fulfills all conditions of appeal. Now, let's look at how OECD is giving the examples and where the catch is. The examples where you are told that place is not at your disposal because a courier boy comes to your premises and gives every day your postal to you, naturally your place is not at his disposal. So a salesman comes to meet the director to take purchase order, naturally the place is not at his disposal. Likewise, road transporter coming to deliver goods, it's the same way as ironman Dhobiwala comes to our place to pick up the goods and to deliver it back. Our house is not at his disposal. There is no dispute on that proposition. Footprint area of a satellite is also not at the disposal. The satellite is in the airspace, geostationary. The footprint area is as good as a light. So in a cricket stadium, when the floodlights are put, you can't say that a person who is operating a floodlight has entire stadium and the ground at his disposal because his light is covering the entire area. So footprint area is not at the disposal of a person who manages the satellite, and in case of a roaming arrangement where home country operator will transfer call to a foreign operator, the home country operator does not have foreign operator's network at his disposal. So far so good. Then you are told that employee of a parent who is allowed to use office of a subsidiary so that subsidiary complies with its obligation under contract with parent for a sufficiently long period. If the parent comes, the place is at his disposal. So here the question is, do you agree with this statement? Here you are told that a subsidiary is a service provider, and we are first told that service provider's place is not at the disposal of the customer. But then I had also told you that mark the word general. So there could be a circumstances where, because of the factual conduct, the subsidiary's premises could be regarded as at the disposal of the parent. Look at our Indian judicial precedent. In case of Motorola, same judgment, two cases. Motorola, the finding of fact was that employees of the holding company did not have place at the disposal. High Court had no hesitation in saying that there is no P. But as against that, in the other telecom operator, mostly Nokia, where the finding of fact was that the employee was dual employee. He was an employee of a foreign parent also, and he was an employee of the subsidiary also. And in that case, in the same judgment, you are told that there is a place at disposal because the employees of the foreign company are present for a long period. The most controversial example which has attracted attention and debate is that a painter for 2 years spending 3 days a week in large office building of client for painting purpose, popularly called as painter's example. Now, a painter comes to your office, he has to paint all the rooms, and you are told that he is going to be there for 3 days a week, meaning thereby not going to be there for balance 3 days, and his contract is for 2 years. Is your office at his disposal? It looks curious, but OECD tells you that it is at your disposal. They have debated it since 2005, and even in 2013 they want to reiterate that yes, our conclusion on this being at your disposal, this being at painter's disposal, is the correct conclusion. I can argue against it by saying that in painter's case, the place is the object of his work. He is coming to paint. In a hotel, if this is to be painted, I can't imagine the walls getting transported back to him. Please paint at your office and we bring it back. It is not a mobile structure. It's a structure where he can come and work only at the premises. And very typically, if it is a 2-year contract, office can't wait not to run for 2 years. So he would be told that only after office is over, after 7 you come, and after 3 days, Friday evening to Monday morning is at your disposal. We'll give you 3 days. So his entry is restricted. So a lot can be said about the correctness of this, but it's very, very interesting to read this conclusion from the IFA report. And it says that any service provider, so the auditor is a service provider at the premises of auditing. Okay, a software engineer going and working on site is the service provider at the premises of the client. So any service provider must be considered to have a legally based access to the client's facilities. So Infosys employee, or say we take it in the context of India. So Microsoft employee coming to Wipro and providing services to Wipro will be regarded as having place at his disposal, place at Microsoft's disposal, because the contract contemplates that he has to have on-site work. We can keep going and keep debating this particular issue, but the point here is that this is a nebulous concept, and internationally the understanding is that client's premises can also be regarded as place at the disposal. Now, the pedestrian example that I gave, he had a choice of doing what he wanted to do. He can pursue his dream plan. The place is at his constant disposal. Now, in a painter's case, tomorrow if he wants to do plumbing, can he do that? If he is given a contract of doing that. So that's another argument which can be stated against. Now, Booz India recent ruling, subsidiary PE type of situation. Lot can be said about correctness of this ruling, but look, even in that ruling, the Indian judiciary says that in some jurisdictions, the disposal test is satisfied by the mere fact of using a place, whereas in some jurisdictions, it is stressed that something more is required than a mere fact of use of place. So friends, with this, let me skip this particular slide and come to an important aspect of agency P. Now, very unique thing and very contentious. Agent, if you see section 182 of our Contract Act, is a person who is employed to do any act for another or to represent another in dealing with the third parties. So he can do anything on behalf of the foreign enterprise. He need not necessarily be a sales agent. So I think first misnomer that we want to take out, that agent can only be doing sales related function, is not consistent with the very concept of agents. So an agent is a person employed to do any act for another or to represent another in dealing with the third parties. Then we are told in agency P that if there is a person who is a general commission agent or a broker, and if he is legally independent, if he is economically independent, and if he is acting in the ordinary course of business, then he is to be treated as an independent agent. An independent agent will not trigger dependent agency P. You don't have a concept of dependent agency, it is just a colloquial reference. So you don't trigger agency P or a personal PE when you are able to conclude that a person is economically, legally independent, as also is acting in the ordinary course of business. Another thing that we have to keep in mind is that the analysis about agency PE will come into picture only after one has concluded that there is no base rule PE. So if base rule PE is otherwise in existence, one doesn't have to come to this particular aspect. On the aspect of legal independence, the test is that a person should have ability to work as per his skill, his expertise, as per his liberty, and he should not be controlled like how an employee may get controlled. On economic independence, we emphasize more about his risk-taking ability. He should be able to diversify into another area of activities, and that he should be able to survive even after the principal has gone. So a person who has a well-diversified portfolio of agency is more likely to be regarded as economically independent rather than a dependent person. He has to act in the ordinary course of business. Question is that if the principal were to give him a broad guidelines as to what he is supposed to do, will it impact his economic or legal independence? Answer is no. But in case of a genie of a lamp, he comes and he tells the person that Jo hukum mere aaka. Now, would you regard genie to be legally and economically dependent on the aaka? Perhaps answer is no. Because he is to be told what is to be done. In a principal agency relationship, you naturally need to tell agent what is expected of him. because he's going to represent you. So you naturally tell him what is expected of you. But beyond that, then genie knows from where to get what you want. He will get food also for you, and he will get diamond also for you. And he will have economic resources which are much, much more than what your resources are. So point is that a broad guidelines will not be fatal to the independence aspect, and this is also one aspect we will discuss when it comes to provisioning of a broad terms and the range of the contract terms which are provided to the agent. I'm sure all of us know that dependent agent does not mean that PE is triggered automatically. There has to be a satisfaction of a further condition, that it has to be either the agent has to have authority to conclude contract, which he should habitually exercise. He should habitually, alternatively, he should habitually maintain stock of goods from where he should fill the orders or deliver the goods regularly, or he should secure the orders on behalf of the foreign enterprise. And we have certain treaties where even manufacturing or processing of goods which are belonging to the foreign enterprise are getting covered by the agency PE rule. So this again highlights that agent is not someone who is necessarily representing your sales function. Now, on authority to conclude contract, the reference is has and habitually exercises authority. Has refers to the factual aspect of the matter. Habitual refers to the regularity of the matter. So if the agreement tells that my agent does not have authority to conclude contract, but the fact of life is that moment he talks to you and you tell him I need these goods, he sends that intimation directly to the warehouse, like how we have seen in that drone, and then the drone goes and delivers the goods. Naturally, what you have written in your agreement that he does not have authority to conclude contract is a dead letter, is a contrary thing, is contrary to the actual facts, and therefore he would be regarded as a person having authority to conclude contract. Habitually, as I said, brings in an element of regularity, and in one of the old treaties that India had, there was a specific clarification that a minimum duration of 3 months is required before a person can be regarded as regularly exercising the authority. On securing of order, this is an important thing. That in most treaties, including in our Act, we are told that if a person is securing order on behalf of the foreign enterprise, wholly or almost exclusively, then that securing activity can also be regarded as PE trigger. Question is, what is meant by securing? And here if you look at two protocols that Indian treaties have, one of Swiss and another of USA, they give you a meaning that securing means a situation where the other person, the order placing person, is told that once he has placed order with you, that would mean that a foreign enterprise is going to execute that order on the same terms and conditions on which he has placed order with you. So often the question arises in our mind, what is really then a difference between concluding of a contract and securing of a contract? Is not securing equivalent to solicitation? So really there is a thin line of difference. In solicitation and securing you may have a big gap. But between securing means you are assuring the other person that you are now secure, your order is secure. There could be a thin line of distinction, and there is a probable view that whatever protocol is indicating in Swiss and USA treaty is reflecting a correct interpretation, and it may apply to other treaties as well to the domestic. Friends, with this, while I skip the Indian rulings, let's go over to the case studies. The idea being to try and apply the principles that we have seen. The object here is to more highlight the controversial nature and the aspects that you may need to consider. The case studies are mostly around the fixed place PE as also other forms of PE, which we may or may not have debated. And in case of a fixed place PE, the question that we will ask ourselves is there a place? Is there a place at a fixed location? Is there a place for a reasonably long duration? And is there a place from which the foreign enterprise is carrying on a business? Now, here in first case study, you are told that a fair is conducted every year in India. The fair duration is a small duration, 1 or 2 weeks a year. A foreign enterprise is participating in this fair regularly. He has participated for 4 past years and we don't know whether or not he will participate in the future fair. The fair is conducted in different parts of India and not at the same place. Question is whether US enterprise which is participating in a fair or has been participating in a fair constitutes a PE in India. Is there a place? And you are told that he comes and participates in a mobile van. So the fact that he participates in a mobile van, does it militate against the place? Answer is no, because he is going to be mobile in a given vicinity. So geographical location could be peripatetic by its very nature. A person doing business in a mobile van has a place of business to the extent he moves in a close vicinity. Same example as the pedestrian that we talked about. So he therefore makes geographical location test. 1 or 2 weeks, is it a good enough a duration? Answer would be no, because we know that a general threshold is 6 months. But 6 months is again a general threshold. It doesn't mean that if it is 5 months, 30 days, 23 hours, it's not 6 months. That's not the rule. Even a short duration visits which are going to recur again and again can trigger PE. And the example that now we have in OECD is that a person who is doing exploration work in Arctic region, because of very season, you can't go there and do long-term mineral exploration. So you need to go only during 3 months. You know you are going to take 5 to 6 years to complete your Arctic operations. Is there a place? Is there a fixed place? Answer is yes, because there is a frequency which makes it a long term. Here in this case, does the frequency of a long-term nature make any difference? It's a dicey thing, it's a fact-oriented thing. The point in his favor or point in favor of no PE is that in the entire India, this fair is happening at different locations. So therefore, the geographical coherence condition is not going to be met. But there was a real life case in Canada where a foreign person was coming to Canada. He came for 15 long years. The fair was for about 3 weeks a year. The fair was at a fixed place. And the finding of fact was that 80 to 90% of the sale of that person happened only when he participated in the fair. Answer was easy. Yes, there is a place of business, because but for this he is not doing anything. So this highlights how the factual analysis becomes relevant. Disposition test. We talked a lot about the painter's case, but this is more to highlight how disposition test would fail here and what are the circumstances. So here we are told that FCO is into the stress management and spiritual healing training. They provide such corporate trainings. So it enters into an agreement with Indian Bank, which has 500 branches across India. There are 100 employees coming for about 3 months. So if you look at in terms of man days, it is 100 into 3 months. So, and even if you take 20 or 25 days a month, it comes to about more than 6,000 man days. So that is, if you really extrapolate, it comes to more than 20 years. FCO is from a country where treaty does not have service PE. So one has to evaluate fixed place PE for FCO in India. Is there a place? Yes, the branch is a place. Is it at disposition? A big question mark. One may be able to say that here the service recipient location is unlikely to be at disposal because it is only for training, and at a particular location training is happening only for 3 days a week. 3 months, not a long enough period, and you don't count man days, you count presence for how many days a foreign enterprise is present, and multiple employees presence to be counted as a day. So presence is of 3 months, so it doesn't fulfill the general taste of 6 months. Business is carried on, but because rest of the conditions are not met, the PE is not emerging. Case study 3, based on the ruling that we have in Daimler Chrysler. Again, one may feel that this is bringing out simple issues or a simple case study, but it has its subtle points. So, a typical joint venture between a foreign enterprise and an Indian joint venture partner. There is a technical collaboration agreement that is there between foreign company and Indian company. Indian company is into the assembly, and the assembly is of semi-knocked down components which are imported from the foreign parent. The foreign parent is nominating a person to participate in the board meeting of Indian company. We are told the transactions are at arm's length, so TP issue is not there. And we are also told that managing director of the Indian company is legally employed by US company but is seconded to India for ICO to work for 2 years as an employee of Indian company. So maybe 2-year employee of an Indian company, we can take it as a strong indicator that there is shift of economic employment so far as this managing director is concerned. Let's see what questions we have for this. Is there a fixed place of PE for the US company for the foreign parent? Answer perhaps is easy to give. That the business of Indian company is that of an Indian company. Indian company is not likely to be alter ego or a slender or an empty thing because it has well qualified board, it has all infrastructure, it is dealing on a principal to principal basis, it is doing value addition and is earning whatever is due to him. So, a very settled position that merely because you deal with associate or with any service provider or with any customer of yours in the source country, you are dealing with that country, you are not dealing in that country. Maybe the relationship that you have with a customer, with your subsidiary gives indirect or direct economic benefit to you, but that in itself is not good enough to trigger P. Relationship is certainly not material, and we are told again and again that the article itself is very clear that subsidiary of itself will not create PE, and the test that you apply for determination of PE in relation to the associated entities would be the same as you would apply to unrelated parties, absolute impartial approach. Is there a place of management in India? Answer is yes. Indian company is being managed in India, so place of management of Indian company is in India. But does that mean that there is a POMP trigger for a foreign enterprise? Answer is no. Place of management PE is a trigger point provided place of management of a foreign enterprise is in it. And this has again become a very contentious issue, particularly with all Indian CFOs and CEOs are elevating their position. They are becoming global heads. So a lot of people report into the global head. And the question and the debate is on whether when this Indian employees are becoming global head or a regional head, are they triggering place of management PE for the enterprises whose CEOs and CFOs report into the Indian CFOs. Now, this is US company, 1 day presence of services provided is good enough to trigger service fee. So look at the service fee. Seconded MD, does it trigger service fee? Answer perhaps is no. Because the assumption that we have made is that economically he has become an employee of an Indian company. An employee of an Indian company cannot be regarded as employee of a US company, so he doesn't trigger service fee. There are people, we are told, are coming to India in terms of collaboration agreement. So collaboration agreement, admittedly services are provided. Does it trigger PE? Because the threshold is just of 1 day. But answer is no. The reason? You are looking at US treaty. And in FIS, fees for included services, you are told that training related activity is to be treated as fees for included services. And in service fee, you are told that whatever that is taxable as fees for included services is to be excluded. So this does not trigger service fee. The last and the challenging one is participation of FCO employees, those who are nominated in the board meetings of an Indian company. So FCO has nominated people to participate in the Indian board. Now, nomination can take different forms. Generally, the nomination would mean that, suppose from my organization, somebody needs to be nominated on the CITC board. Now, once I get nominated, maybe my organization has nominated, but it is thereafter my personal skill, wherewithal, which will make difference to the CITC. And it is because of my personal acknowledgement that I may be inducted on the board of the CITC. So a director, when he is nominated and he is accepted by the Indian party, because of his skill and expertise, he is rendering services in his own right. He receives director's fees. He is generally not rendering services on behalf of his foreign enterprise. And if the conclusion is that there are no services rendered by the foreign company, again you don't have the service fee issue. Friends, toll manufacturing arrangement.
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Ma'am, in all the practical purpose we have seen, there is a holding company and the subsidiary. Holding company sets up a subsidiary in India, and one of the highest paid employee is being appointed as a director, and then they represent and they nominate few of the directors from the holding company.
Correct.
So, if you look at it, they are virtually doing business in India through this mechanism. There is a director, there is a board of directors. Indian person is on the board of the directors. Does it mean it has an independent board of directors, and they are not PE of the foreign company in India?
So, therefore, we are asking ourselves a question: do you respect legal independence of the Indian company? Is Indian company a puppet of his parents? Is Indian company a slender, empty, just in form, but virtually reflecting the foreign company, and there is therefore a virtual projections? And therefore, do you feel that a relationship is so over empowering that whenever my son is, because I am his mother, he is supposed to do exactly what I ask him to. That's the question. I think it's a very fact-sensitive exercise. Generally, if we go by Vodafone and if you respect the corporate structure and Unilever and Hindustan Lever, you do have holding subsidiary relations. But I believe people from Hindustan Lever, they go to the board of Unilever and they participate. So now the question will be, do you have a topsy-turvy and do you therefore create P issue for Hindustan Lever in UK? I believe it would be a very fact-oriented situation in the example that we have taken. And this is, as I said, is based on Daimler Chrysler ruling. So if it's a fact pattern akin to Daimler Chrysler, where Daimler is one JV partner and Tata is another JV partner. Now, would we expect this JV to be